Game 1 of round 2 in the 2024 Rugby Championship competition took place at Eden Park in New Zealand, a ground where the All Blacks had not been beaten for 30 years. They'd had a couple of draws there since 1994, but no one was able to get them on their favourite ground and piece of real estate in New Zealand. Was the Argentinian Los Pumas going to be able to do it after a comprehensive win in that first game against the All Blacks in Wellington? Well, in this video I'm going to talk about the game, give you my thoughts and opinions, and have a closer look at actually what happened in Auckland yesterday. Let's get into it right now. G'day everyone, and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you haven't been here before, my name's Mark. I'm a Kiwi bloke who loves rugby, and I'm living in Cancun, Mexico. Welcome on board. If it's your first time here, welcome. It's great to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, become part of our global rugby community, and make sure you leave a comment. I'd love to hear your views and opinions on this particular video. Okay, let's get into it. The All Blacks playing the Los Pumas at Eden Park, and a lot of nervous Kiwis around the world yesterday, me being one of them, was a little bit worried that the Pumas were going to do it against the All Blacks. And I'd made a video saying about what I thought were the mistakes in the selections of the All Blacks. Going to talk about that during this video, and I'm also going to give you my insights to what I think might happen next. So let's get into it. Now, the All Blacks hadn't suffered back-to-back losses except for the times they got beaten by France and Ireland. So this was a game that had a lot on the line, that's for sure. Now, the game got underway in horrendous conditions. There'd been a lot of rain in Auckland. The field was pretty wet. There wasn't a full sellout crowd at this game, which was rather disappointing to see that from an All Blacks game. And it was a pretty horrible night by the look of it, though, there in Auckland. If you did go along to the game, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your views about what you thought of the climatical conditions in terms of the atmosphere as well with inside Eden Park last night. Now, the game got underway, and right from the get-go, the All Blacks were showing intense purpose and execution, and even in these conditions they were doing some really good things. We saw Damian McKenzie getting stuck in early on, someone that I have been having a big question mark over in my previous videos, and I still do, by the way, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But Beauden Barrett got involved early as well, and it just looked like in the first couple of minutes that the All Blacks were really on song in this game, and they were taking it right up to the Argentinians. They were physical, they were intensive, and they looked like they were getting a little bit more on the front foot in terms of their accuracy in this game. Now, despite losing an attacking line out in the 4th minute of the game, the All Blacks bounced straight back and the ball came out to Jordie Barrett. He made a fantastic little chip kick over the top, which saw Damian McKenzie running onto it, and in the 5th minute of the game, the All Blacks went in for their first try. Was this going to set the scene for the game for the evening? Well, it was pretty well executed, and Jordie Barrett had the ball on a piece of string and just put it inside the in-goal area, enough for Damian McKenzie to run onto it. It's just the start the All Blacks wanted, and Damian McKenzie got the conversion over, so it was 7 points to 0 just after 5 minutes in the game, and it was a great start for the Kiwis. Then the restart from the Argentinians, and they showed that they were right into it, and Damian McKenzie had got the ball then, tried to kick for touch, didn't find his touch, and the Argentinians were able to put on a little bit of a counter-attack. They didn't look as rhythmical as the All Blacks had started the game, and they looked like they were missing a little bit of their intensity. 7th minute of the game, the Argentinians went on attack and started putting pressure into the All Blacks half, and it looked like, as we saw in Wellington when the All Blacks scored, Argentina came right back. On this occasion, though, they weren't able to do it. Damian McKenzie got the ball after the All Blacks had turned it over, and he went for a 50-22, but unfortunately it went out on the full, so just missing that one a little bit from Damian McKenzie. In the 11th minute of the game, it was the Argentinians' first opportunity to put points on the board after Tyrell Lomax did a no-arms tackle on one of the Argentinian counterparts, and Santiago Carreras came up for his first kick at goal for the evening, which was successful. So after 12 minutes of play, the All Blacks were in the lead by 7 points to 3, Argentina on the scoreboard, and it was going to be interesting to see how it went. Now, one of the interesting stats in this game was in the forward packs. Argentina had 395 caps of experience compared to the All Blacks 259. So it is a young All Black forward pack that we saw on the park last night, and players like Tamati Williams were playing exceptionally well to start off in this game, and I had my eye on him right from the very start. Next up, Argentina had the ball and they were trying to clear it from the back of a scrum. Bertrano took too long with the caterpillar hold, and the referee pinged him and gave the All Blacks the opportunity. This was a big mistake by Argentina, gave the All Blacks the ball in an attacking position, and they were in the mood to score some early points. So the All Blacks put a lot of pressure on and ended up getting very close to the Pumas line, and it was that man Adi Savia who had started the game enormously well, who went over for a fantastic try for the All Blacks, their second in the first 15 minutes of this game. They'd come to play, their execution was good, and they were looked like they were handling the conditions very well indeed. Damian McKenzie got the conversion over, so the score went from 14 points to 3 to 16 points to 3, and the All Blacks were already starting to put some major points on the Argentinians before the first 20 minutes of the game had even ended. Then from the restart, Damian McKenzie got the ball and missed his kick return in a bad way, gave the ball over to Argentina straight away, and they counter-attacked and started putting pressure on the All Blacks. Damian McKenzie was playing exceptionally well in open play. He was having a little bit of trouble with his general play kicking in the early part of this game, not finding the parameters that he was looking for. And I noticed a couple of times that Beauden Barrett came up and gave him a bit of a pat on the back after each one of those, just to keep his confidence going. In this game seemed to give them a lot of confidence, and they went into the scrums looking very dominant indeed. Again, the front row was performing very well for the All Blacks, and Argentina were having a difficult time in being able to control them. The next time the Argentinians got the ball, a minute later, Tupou Vai did a great turnover and really got in there early to the breakdown and showed that he wanted to get the ball back for the All Blacks. It was a good sign for the All Blacks. They were starting to win some domination in the breakdown area, and they looked a lot more physical than they had been down in Wellington the week before. 23rd minute of the game, and that man Adi Savia had really started off this game fantastically well, and he was the one to set up the next try for the All Blacks that went to Caleb Clark. There was a run down the left-hand side of the field, and Savia drew his man and put Clark away, who was not going to miss from 15 metres out for the All Blacks. He slid along the ground into the infield goal and planted the ball down, something he's pretty used to doing at Eden Park in Auckland. Caleb Clark, of course, playing for the Auckland Blues. It was another really good try, really good execution from the All Blacks. They'd put it through the back line. Savia was out there, drew the man, and put Caleb Clark in for the try. A very good executed try from the All Blacks. Damian McKenzie nailed the conversion, which he was doing very well with his boot in this game. And then from the restart, he was able to find touch for the first time in this game. So I think he got a little bit of confidence by the way he was playing in that first 20 minutes or so, Damian McKenzie, and the fact that he was kicking his conversions pretty well. I think his general field kicking play finally came to him after 25 minutes of the game. At this stage of the game, Argentina looked a bit shell-shocked, to be truthful. They looked as though they were expecting the All Blacks to come at them like this after that game in Wellington, and this is exactly what their worst nightmare was. And you only had to look on the face of Felipe Contepomi, who was sitting in the coaching box for the Argentinian Pumas, and he looked very concerned after the first 25 minutes of this game. He knew the All Blacks were on song tonight. They were in free flow, and they were putting on scores on the board at will. And it was a very comprehensive display across the field from the All Blacks in those conditions. It was really a masterclass in the way they went about their execution. All of the forwards were putting up big hits, and Blackadder was having a really good game early on as well. He was getting in there and tiring up the Argentinians at the breakdown and doing that hustling that he's very well known for. So it was a great start from the All Blacks. Were they going to be able to keep it on? That was the question everybody was wanting to see now. And were the Argentinians going to be able to come back into this game like they did in Wellington a week before? 26th minute of the first half, and one of the things that I'd been talking about in previous videos about the All Blacks, TJ Perenara, he'd started the game pretty well, but in the 26th minute he got one of his box kicks charged down, or partially charged down I should say. And it was an interesting strategy then what happened after that. They stopped TJ Perenara from actually doing a lot of box kicking. He started to clear the ball more out to Damian McKenzie at number 10 and also to Beauden Barrett for them to clear the line. So basically TJ Perenara put the box kick in his locker for the game after that, and I think that was a really good idea. It took away that element of the game from him, but it also took away the stress that it actually had occurred around that for him in Wellington, I thought. So he started off pretty well in this game, I thought, Perenara, a lot better than he had in Wellington, and without those kicking responsibilities and having those a few hiccups that he had in Wellington, he got the ball out to Mackenzie and to Beauden Barrett a little bit quicker. The Argentinians were just having trouble penetrating the All Blacks defence, and that just showed the All Blacks defence was on song at the beginning of this game. Whenever they had the ball for a set period of time, the Argentinians were going more laterally and they weren't able to break through the All Blacks defence. Next up in the game, we saw the All Blacks back in possession again. It was that man that I was talking about, TJ Perenara, who did a very fantastic move down the blind side, and he drew a fantastic pass that put Will Jordan away for a try. And don't we love seeing Will Jordan score tries for the All Blacks, whether he's on the wing or any other position. But he went in from a great pass from TJ Perenara, who was falling to the ground, looped the ball around the back of the defender's back, and it found Will Jordan, who was screaming towards the goal line. There was no stopping the All Blacks in the first 30 minutes of this game. It was a great try indeed. Mackenzie got the conversion over, so the All Blacks were out to 28 points to 3 after 30 minutes, and all the pressure now was on Argentina. Were they going to be able to even get back into this game? It was a very different scenario than what we'd seen in Wellington. Although, as I did say in my previous video, the All Blacks had a good lead of 20 points to 8 with about 4 minutes to go before halftime in Wellington. Was this going to be another case where Argentina were going to get back into this game close to halftime with the All Blacks ahead 28 points to 3? Well, I didn't think it was going to happen in this game. Matty Williams was playing fantastic up until this stage. He was really doing some good things and really disrupting the Argentinians in the scrum. And any time Argentina wanted to go into a scrum, they knew they were going to be under the pump from the All Black prop. It was a very good display indeed. And then next up, the All Blacks were really keeping the pedal on the metal in this game, and it wasn't long before they were in for their next try. And this try once again came from sustained pressure from the All Blacks. 10 phases of play. The ball came out to the left-hand side, and Damian Mackenzie put Beauden Barrett through a very simple gap and in for a very easy and soft try. It was a great move by the All Blacks, but they put the pressure on the Argentinians in that 10 different phases, the forwards doing a lot of good work, and then the backs being able to execute when the ball came out. So that was the 44th try for Beauden Barrett in the All Black colours, and it was a fantastic try set up by Damian Mackenzie. Mackenzie got the conversion over, and the All Blacks were out to 35 points to 3. The bonus point already in the bag, and the All Blacks looking like a completely different team than what we saw in Wellington. My question was, were they going to be able to keep this going for the second half, and what impact was the bench going to have when they came on? Well, that was the halftime score, 35 points to 3. The All Blacks dominated that first half of rugby. The Argentinians, as I said, looked shell-shocked when they did get the ball. They didn't have any kind of momentum going forward. They didn't look like they were going to score a try against this All Black team in the first half. It would have been very disappointing for the Argentinian fans after seeing what we all saw in Wellington last weekend. But no doubt about it, the All Blacks deserve the credit. They came out, they were physical, and they had intent. They had accuracy right from the beginning, regardless of the conditions, and they were executing their plays. Maybe last week in Wellington we saw a couple of balls not going in their favour. In this particular first half of rugby, everything fell in line with the All Blacks, and they were able to put everything on the table as far as getting points on the board. It was an extremely good masterclass of rugby in the first 40 minutes of this game. The Argentinians, they needed to try something different in the second half. They were getting pummeled by the forwards. They weren't getting any clean ball. They were on the back foot most of the time, a little bit like the All Blacks were last weekend. The roles had been reversed this week, that's for sure. Contepomi, I'm sure, would have been saying to the guys, we need to set the platform better. We need to give our backs an opportunity. The likes of Santiago Carreras and the likes of Chocobaras and Sinti, they weren't in the game, and they were having a lot of trouble getting any penetration at all through the All Blacks. I think Scott Robertson would have said to the All Blacks, great start, boys. We need to keep this going, particularly when we put the bench on, and we need to see how we can finish a game off. It's important to be able to play 80 minutes against the best teams in the world, and of course when the All Blacks travel to South Africa next up in this Rugby Championship, they're going to have to go 80 minutes against the South Africans. So I think it was a really good litmus test to see what the All Blacks were going to be capable of doing after having a very healthy lead in the first half of this game. We got underway in the second half and it just started like the first half. The All Blacks were putting the pressure on, and we only had to wait 2 minutes before the All Blacks were in for another try. And it was that man, Will Jordan, again going over the goal line. He just seems to make a habit of this in every test match that he plays for the All Blacks. It was a great move again. The All Black forwards have been putting pressure on the Argentinians. They'd got the ball as a turnover and the ball came out, and Will Jordan was the man who went over for the try. So immediately in the first half, the All Blacks had put on points. The conversion was good by Damien McKenzie. The All Blacks were out to 42 points to 3, and there was still 38 minutes to go in this game. Just a minute later, and Contepomi decided to start ringing the changes for the Argentinians. He'd seen enough of what was being played on the field, so off came 9, 10 and 15, and we got to see a different looking Argentinian team in the second half, and it started to have immediate effect. Velaz, who was their halfback, came on and started making some good purpose from halfback and from the breakdown. Abanos went into number 10. He was doing some good stuff. Malia at 15 was probably the player of the game in Wellington for Argentina, and he was starting to play really well again for them here. So those changes really started to make a difference for Argentina, and we found that the New Zealanders were just struggling a little bit to continue the momentum that they'd had in the first half. The rain didn't help. It came back early in the second half. It got heavy again, and that started to put a little bit of a dampener literally on the way that this game was being played. From Argentina, we saw a couple of good runs from Oviedo, and we saw some good kicking for touch from Obanez as they started to move their way back into the game. Scott Robertson decided to make some changes, and he brought Sam Cane on for his 96th cap as an All Black, and it was good to see Sam Cane back on the field. I'd spoken about the importance of Cane in the preview video of this game, saying that his leadership, his experience would be something that the All Blacks would really need in this game. Well, he probably wasn't expecting to come on with the All Blacks leading by 42 points to 3 in this game. So it was a case of really maintaining the momentum for the All Blacks and seeing whether they could really nail the coffin of the Argentinians in the last part of this game. 53rd and 54th minute of the game, couple of more changes for the All Blacks. Taimati Williams came off after a sensational game. Thought he played really well. Tuanga Fasi went on, and we saw Josh Lord come on for Sam Derry, who had another good game for the All Blacks up until that stage. So that young man's career is going very well at lock, and he's doing everything that's been asked of him, I think, from Scott Robertson, particularly in the conditions that we saw at Eden Park yesterday. He was able to get good ball in the line out, and I think backing up against with Tupou Vai, they started to build a bit of a combination together, and they both played really well in this game. Nothing much happened in the game between then and the 60th minute. We saw a bit of kicking going backwards and forwards. We saw a couple of drop balls. The weather conditions again were having an impact on it, but the All Blacks' dominance that we saw in the first 50 minutes of the game seemed to subside, and the Argentinians were getting more possession and starting to make more territory of it as well. TJ Perenara was taken off by the All Blacks, and Cortez Ratama came on. Of course, I've already spoken about my favouritism for Cortez Ratama, so it was going to be good to see how he finished this game out for the All Blacks in the 20 minutes or so that he was given in the game. One of the first things he did when he came on the field, Ratama, was he put a clever kick up over the Argentinian defence towards the corner, and the ball just died in the in goal, and the All Blacks were on attack trying to get a try out of that, but the Argentinian defence was up to the play, and they were able to get back and secure the ball for a line dropout. But it was a good kick by Ratama. He weighted it very well. He surprised the Argentinian defence, and he gave his outside backs the opportunity to get up there. 69th minute of the game, I saw one of those funny things sometimes you see in games like this, and it was Mark Talia. He picked up the ball. He had probably the whole Argentinian team in front of him, and he went off on one of those Mark Talia trademark runs. And he made about 3 or 4 meters, and it looked like he got tackled, but he kept going and he kept going and he kept going, and before you knew it, he made 20-25 meters up the field. It was one of those really good Mark Talia runs, and he got the ball back for the Kiwis at that stage, so that was a good piece of play on his behalf. But we got to the 71st minute and Argentina were not going to lie down in this game, and they started putting more and more pressure on the All Blacks. They started to get into the All Blacks red zone, and the ball came out to Malia, who went over for a very good try for Argentina after sustained pressure and a number of different phases of play for the Pumas. It was a good consolation try for the Pumas, the fact that they didn't give up in this game despite being absolutely overawed in the first 50 minutes of the game. They slowly started building their way back into the game, and by the time we got to the 70th minute mark, I would say that Argentina had the run of the grain as well, because the All Black bench was not making any significant inroads in terms of keeping that momentum going that the All Blacks had got in the first 50 minutes of the game. And that's one of the question marks that I'll put on the All Blacks' performance after that sensational first 50 minutes of the game. Somalia went over for a try for Argentina. They were able to convert that. So the score at that stage was 42 points to 10 with about 8 minutes left on the clock. 75th minute of the game, first yellow card and only yellow card of the game, and it went the way of the All Blacks. Asafa Amur got pinged for a dangerous tackle, and he got to spend the rest of the game on the bench. And luckily for him, it wasn't upgraded to a red card, so it stayed a yellow card. And Amur will be having a look at the replay of that and working out his tackle height. He was a bit high going into that one. So just a few minutes on the clock, and what was interesting now for me in the second half of this game as I was analysing it was the scoreboard was 7 points all for the second half, 1 try apiece to both teams. So the All Blacks weren't able to keep that momentum going in the second half that they'd built up in the first 50 minutes of this game. The bench didn't have a really big impact from the All Blacks' point of view. So we went into the last couple of minutes of the game after Amur had left the field, and the Argentinians just continued to try and attack into the All Blacks zone. The All Blacks defence held out though, and there was no further score in the game. So the All Blacks ended up winning this one by 42 points to 10. They scored 35 of those points in the first half, and Argentina were able to get 7 of their points in the second half. So listen, my summary of this is quite straightforward. I think the All Blacks played an absolute masterclass in the first 50 minutes of this game. This, however, is not going to be good enough against South Africa. And the reason I say that is because we all know that the way that South Africa are playing at the moment, they go for 80 minutes. The All Blacks need to be able to play at that level and particularly compete with the South African bench when it comes on in the last 20 minutes of that game. I'm not trying to distract from the All Blacks' performance in that first 50 minutes of the game. I really do believe this was a game of 2 sections for the All Blacks. We had that first 50 minutes where they looked absolutely impulsive. They were going for it. They had lots of physicality. Their execution was excellent. They scored some very, very good tries. There was a lot of good support play. Their defense was heavy. Couldn't speak highly enough of it. But I was a little bit dismayed when I saw that they weren't able to go on with it in the second half. Either the players that came in off the bench or the players that were already staying on the field. I know it must be pretty difficult when you've got such a big lead at halftime to re-energise yourself to go out there and do it again. But as I say, against the world champions of South Africa, the All Blacks are going to have to play for 80 minutes. A 50-minute performance is not going to be good enough. Plenty of you in the comments are going to give me a hard time about my video about selections in this team for the All Blacks. Well, I'll tell you one thing, and that is one game doesn't make a team of champions. So yes, TJ Perenara had a much better game. He put the box kick away, and he was a little bit more accurate when it came to his passing. So maybe he needed the razz up that everybody gave him in this last week to get him actually to perform to this level. That's one thing I'd say. Damien McKenzie was a lot better in this game, no doubt about it, but it was because the forwards were able to go forward and they set that platform and gave him time to be able to do what he does. Against South Africa, that's going to be a different game, so we're going to have to watch that. Across the field in that first 50 minutes, I thought the All Blacks were very, very good indeed. They were making sure that they were playing with intent. The energy levels were way superior to what we saw in Wellington, and their execution in conditions which were completely the opposite to what we saw in Wellington were absolutely fantastic. We have to remember where the All Blacks have come from so far this year. Very close 2 games against England, a good hit out against Fiji, and then a loss to Argentina in the first game, and then a very good 50 minutes in the beginning of this game. Is that going to be enough to go to South Africa with confidence to be able to beat the world champions? I don't think it is at this stage. We're going to need to see a performance that goes for 80 minutes from all of these players for them to have any chance at all against the Springboks when they get over there. Argentina will be disappointed with this performance after what happened in Wellington. I think the conditions didn't help them. Also, the way the All Blacks started this game. We've seen these types of games from the All Blacks before. We all remember back to the game against the Springboks at Mount Smart Stadium when the All Blacks got off to a fantastic start in that game. And the world champions weren't able to come back in that game either. So Argentina were trying to look at the same kind of scenario, and it was just a little bit beyond them. It's going to be really interesting now, isn't it, when Argentina take on Australia in Argentina over the next 2 games of the Rugby Championship. I think those games are going to be really, really close, and Argentina are going to want to get back on the winning podium as far as their team is concerned. I still rate this Argentinian team. I don't write them off because of this particular win from the All Blacks. The All Blacks sewed up this game in the first 50 minutes of this game. Argentina showed in the remainder of the game that they were competitive, and they kept the scoreboard to 7 points all in the second half. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in Argentina when Australia go over there. I think the All Blacks will take a lot of confidence from this win, but at the same time, they're going to be a little bit nervous, I think, in terms of going to South Africa after the way that South Africa have been shown they've played their first 2 games against Australia in Australia. They've got a complete squad of players who are able to put 80 minutes of first-class rugby on the field, and the All Blacks are going to have to match that intensity, that physicality, and that innovation out wide if they're going to have any chance against the Springboks. It's going to be interesting to see the squad announcement for the South African trip from the All Blacks, who gets left behind, who goes over there, and who's going to have an opportunity. I haven't really changed my views about too many of the players that I mentioned. I think Sam Cane needs to go. He needs to be in this team and part of that travelling squad to bring that experience for this All Black team. Some of the questions that I had about the selections are still there in my mind, not just because of this game and the way that the All Blacks played, but I think in terms of that whole Mackenzie and Beauden Barrett situation at 10 and 15, still not answered properly for me. I think the wings also, there's a bit of a question mark over there, and I still don't think we've got the centre pairing worked out as well for the All Blacks. I'd like to see Billy Proctor in there, as I've been hammering on for some time. Can TJ Perenara back this up with consistency and play at this level every game? We have to wait and see whether first he's given an opportunity, and secondly whether he's able to do it. The forwards went a lot better in this game. I think as far as the All Blacks, Blackadder was much better in this game. I give him some high ratings. Sam Darry as well. Tupou Vai played well in that front row for the All Blacks in the first half, was absolutely outstanding and put a lot of pressure on the Argentinian scrum. So a fantastic performance, as I said again, in the first 50 minutes. If you haven't heard me say it, fantastic performance by the All Blacks in the first 50 minutes, and a big question mark over the final 30 minutes of the game for me. Now let me know in the comments what you thought of the game, particularly if you're at the game. I'd love to hear from you. But let me know what you thought about the All Blacks performance in the first 50 minutes and then also in the last 30 minutes of the game. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Also, let me know what you think of the Argentinian team and how they're going now. Some of you have written, oh, they're Tier 2 rugby team and they're no good and all the rest of it, and you've written them off. I haven't written them off. I think they're going to go good against the Australians, and I can't wait to see those games in Argentina. Okay, well, there we go. There's my summary of the game between the All Blacks and Argentina, won by the All Blacks by 42 points to 10 in Auckland, New Zealand. They keep their record up at Eden Park. That means there's 50 games where the All Blacks have not been beaten, only 2 draws out of those 50 games, and it goes way back to 1994. So the fortress mentality is still in state until we see Australia there later on this year. That's going to be very interesting, that game. Okay, that's it for me in this video. Make sure you stick around because there's plenty more content coming right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. The best way to do that is hit the subscribe button. Here's a few other ways in which you can support my channel. Remember, all I'm trying to do is share my passion for the game of rugby and playing a small role in trying to make the great game grow across the world. I'd love your support to help me do that. I'll be back again really soon with another video. Until then, stay well, stay safe everybody. Keep enjoying your rugby right across the world, no matter where you are. And I'll see you again right here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Until then, adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Bye for now.